podcast family. Welcome to Motherhood in Black and White. My name is Kaanji.
I'm Tara.
And this week we are going to speak a little bit about how we can raise resilient kids. Carl Jung once wrote, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." And so often, what has happened to us as parents influences and informs how we raise our kids. And the question that we want to ask is, how can we raise resilient kids? What does resilience mean to you, Tara?
Resilience means to me, I think of toughness, like as a definition, the ability, I think we looked it up, didn't we? I'll just give the definition of resilience, the ability to overcome difficulties. But I've always thought of it as, being tough, being resilient.
That's like you in a nutshell.
Some days it feels like I am, and other days not so much.
And having resilient kids necessarily implies that your kids have difficulties. And something that I realized is my child's life is not very difficult.
Yeah.
But I also look at it as a reflection of what my childhood was. And so for me and for when we decided to talk about this podcast about how we raise resilient kids, I realized that a lot of it needs to start with an audit of ourselves, because the resilience and the ability to overcome difficulties for us, I think, necessarily happened because we had some rather intense childhoods, if that's accurate to say.
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Back in the 1990s, there were some psychologists that created a test called the Adverse Childhood Experiences Questionnaire. Mm-hmm. And last week I shared this with you. And what this, don't laugh, don't give away.
I know, right?
But you had never taken it before,
I
right?
had never taken it before. I had heard the term before, but I'd never sat down and looked at the actual questions.
The ACE, it's the Adverse Childhood Experiences Questionnaire, and it measures 10 types of childhood trauma. And the higher the score that a person receives, the higher that person's risk of health, emotional, and social problems later in life. And the psychologists and sociologists realize there's a direct link between later in life health and well-being issues and early childhood trauma. So you and I both took this test.
Correct.
And because we are both
overachievers,
we both basically nailed it.
That's right. 10 out of 10.
We aced the ACE test.
I don't know if that's the test you want to do really well on.
I don't think so.
I don't think that's the one you want.
And I looked at it and I realized that my childhood upbringing obviously was not quote unquote normal.
Right.
But it was what I know. It's what I knew and it's what I experienced. Mm-hmm. So later in life, as I started to meet people that had two-parent households and had healthy relationships with extended family members and had resources,
right?
And it made me realize, like, wow, this is not something that I can just see on TV. This is the experience that a lot of people have.
Yeah, it was a little different for me because maybe not the entire time I was growing up, but for a good chunk of it, I was seeing two-parent households and people that seemed to be living what I would call a TV normal life. Mm-hmm. And so as a kid, I actually felt really isolated, like nobody's having this experience that I'm having. So it was really scary and kind of tough. And as I've grown older, I've learned that turns out a lot of people were having this experience. You know what I mean? So I've had more shared connection and realizing that I wasn't the only one that had those kind of experiences. Because at the time when I was looking out, it looked to me like I was the only one.
Yeah. And when I don't share a lot of my upbringing with people that I meet later in life. And especially now that we live in a city where everyone knows me as Roman's mom, because we moved to the city when our son was 3. So when people start to hear a little bit about my upbringing and my story, they're like, really?
Yeah.
That's how you were raised? But you're so successful now. You're quote unquote successful. Mm-hmm. And I looked at this test and the test said if you score higher than a 4, you have a higher percentage of having the ability, having teenage pregnancies or having higher heart disease.
I was surprised at those. It was like 300% more likely to have heart disease. Mm-hmm. It was like 200% more likely to have like COPD, like lung issues, diabetes. I was like, I didn't realize there was such a direct correlation.
Right. And then so I was looking at these factors that they say are going to be indicators of illnesses, health, social, economic, mental issues in life. And I was like, well, I got way above a 4. Like, again, aced the ACE test.
Same, yeah.
And so I looked, I said, well, why is it that there are certain people that have childhood trauma, and because of the severity of that childhood trauma, kind of succumb to some of these illnesses and issues. And then there are some that don't. And then the psychologist said there's a direct correlation between what was then developed is the resilience test. So we took that test as well.
That's correct.
Right?
That's
and
right. And I aced it.
Aced it again.
That's right. That's right.
That's why I love you. And I was like, what score did you get?
Right.
I'm like,
what was yours? Well, and let's see, the resilience. So the ACE test was 10 questions, and I was 10 out of 10. And then the resilience quiz was 14. And I was 13 out of 14. They tell you to look at it both ways, right? I was 13 out of 14 as a young person. And then today I'm actually a 14 out of 14. So I was like, all right then.
Yeah.
I'm doing all right.
So the integration of resilience factors and the ability to develop coping skills can really help people improve their lives. So what we want to talk about and touch on is twofold. It's how we can develop resilient kids, especially when there is an absence of quote unquote difficult childhood.
Right.
And I'm not by any means saying that or in any way indicating that there's levels of childhood trauma or difficulties, because childhood is going to be hard for so many of our kids.
Of course.
And there are going to be experiences that kids have that may not be the type of trauma that you or I experienced.
Right. Different.
But our kids are definitely going to experience things that are traumatic and traumatizing to them, and how we can help them overcome it. So what have you found in your experience with parenting Gage, your almost 11-year-old, is something that he's having difficulties with, or how you work to help him to develop that resilient muscle?
One of the things I was thinking about after we took this too is that I guess in my mind, I also thought that the only way to teach him resilience was through difficulty, but I'm finding that's a little different. But I know specifically he'll be 11 this summer. And not too long ago, even on this podcast, I shared a story about him getting in some pretty big trouble. And then, we were pretty upset with him. And that trouble for him turned out to create some pretty big feelings for him. And he leaned towards some solutions that weren't productive. I don't want to share his whole story, so I won't, but it was pretty tough. Like, we had a really rough go of it for a few days, just talking him through, his feelings coming out of getting in trouble and how he could better sort of reckon with those feelings, like what some better choices would be. And, I didn't think about it at the time as a lesson in resilience, but what I do remember is that when it was happening, I had to check myself and how I handle difficult situations and try to model that for him. I had to stay calm, talk him through how he was feeling, why he felt like that was the right move, what I would prefer in the future, how he could come and talk to me about anything that he was feeling, and just kind of open up those lines of communication. We talked about if there's somebody else he needs to talk to, if we need to find some additional help. I just try to show him that there's another way to solve your problem. And I think and when we were reading the resilience comments about how to kind of flex that muscle, a lot of it is about making connections outside of yourself, problem solving, looking for solutions that are long-term and not short-term, that kind of stuff. And I mean, I don't know if I did it right. It felt right.
Right.
You know what I mean? You ever have one of those times when you're like working something out with your kid, and I walked away and I was like, okay, I think we did okay. I was like heartbroken and like hurting myself, but I couldn't, I was trying to hold space for him to have his feelings.
Of course.
And then I like walked off and had my feelings to myself later, but I think that's one of the things that I also thought I didn't get as a kid, dealing with like really tough stuff. And so I try to model for him what I wanted or what I would have wanted.
No, thank you for sharing that. Yeah. And it's so important to have that and be that emotional support for our kids.
Yeah.
We talked earlier about like what the definition of resilience was,
right.
And we talk about what resilience is the ability to recover quickly from difficulties. And I've worked really hard in my adult life to make sure that my son doesn't have difficulties in his life, and we talk and we share a lot. And recording this episode a couple of days after the killing of 20-year-old Dante Wright in Minneapolis, it just brings up a lot of issues that we've talked about on this podcast, and I've shared with you offline about the need or the desire to protect adolescent Black boys. And the saying that I grew up with my mom and my two brothers, and looking at how differently we were parented in the exact same household, right? And we say, that Black women love their sons, but they raise their daughters.
Yeah.
And so I was raised from a very early age to have a lot of adulting in my childhood.
Responsibility.
Responsibility.
Yeah.
Adulting. I did a lot. And I was like, well, how come I'm writing checks? How come I'm doing dishes? How come I'm taking the bus? And all of these things I did at a very young age. And I look at my 12-year-old son and realize that he doesn't do any of that. So my husband and I had very challenging childhoods, both of us. And we've worked to take away that difficulty that Roman has. Like he has this kind of rose-colored view of the world. And it's partially because I know how difficult the world outside of our four walls can and could be for him just because of the color of his skin.
Yeah.
And so I really do hold that scaffolding up really tight and high. And I do things that I probably shouldn't, still make him breakfast in the morning and drive him places when he really could ride his bike or walk. But a lot of it comes from, one, the knowledge that he's not going to get the ability to do that and have the latitude to do that out in the world.
Yeah.
And two, my own fear of what will happen when I let that scaffolding go. Because the only place we can really protect him is within these four walls. But conversely, that's not building any resilience in this kid. He's not learning to do things for himself. And so there's a balancing act there that I kind of wanted to walk through. And podcast family, I don't know if any of you parents also feel the same way. Just, that you need to let that scaffolding go, and that you need to let the kids fall. And that you're going to be there to catch them. But it's terrifying to think of how it's going to feel when they start to fall.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk through that a little bit. So understanding okay, these are my own issues I got to work through. So let's work through these. How can we develop resilient kids? You and I had a talk offline and actually were able to find some great resources that we can share. But ultimately, I think there's a couple of real actionable items that people can do and parents we can do to help to flex that muscle, like you said earlier, Tara, right?
Right.
And for me, I saw, and I know the first thing that I need to do is to not always provide all of the answers, to let him fall and fail.
Yeah.
I did it when he was an infant. That's how you learn how to walk. Like every time he was stumbling, I would let him fall. But something happened as he started getting older. I stopped letting him fall and stopped letting him fail. So I think that is a really important key for us as parents, especially those of us who are quick to intervene and want to be problem solvers.
Right.
I don't know what Enneagram type that would be. You would know, Tara.
I don't know. I mean, I would probably call it a 3. I mean, and I think some of that's on the other side. It's like, not only do we want them to maybe not have any difficulties, but we also want them to succeed. And I think sometimes in our effort to push them to success, we don't make them push themselves. You know what I mean? Like, I know I shared with you earlier, Gage was like, I wanted to do that art poster, but we didn't do it. I'm like, who's we? Like, if you wanted to do an art contest, tell me what you needed. You could do, it's like, if we don't let them build that drive for themselves, then when we're not there, where's it going to come from? There's a lot to the whole building resilience. It's not just about letting them fail, but also about letting them find it in themselves to solve problems, find it in themselves to want to succeed and do that thing.
That's so good.
Yeah.
It just makes me question why it is that those of us who are Gen Xers who did so much on our own, who kind of at a really early age had to be independent.
We've swung the entire
we have just failed these Gen Zers and Gen Alphas.
We just swing back and forth.
How did that happen?
I don't know. I think about that a lot. I was just talking to a friend of mine about the other day. I go, we're out here in these streets talking about how tough we were, and then our kids are like the Just spoiled his kids.
Ice cream softies. And it's not just us.
Yeah.
Because I've seen it in my neighborhood. Roman was at the park a few months ago, and he's in 6th grade, and they were playing sports with 4th graders on this park, and these moms came out of nowhere to complain that they were playing too rough with these kids. And I was like, what is it that these 4th grade moms are even doing? Like, let your kids just play on the field. Yeah.
Were they complaining?
Yes. And then they were trying to videotape the kids. And,
oh my goodness.
And the 8th graders intervened. But it was like, as mothers, my mother had no idea what I was doing in the afternoons. Ever. It was like, go outside and stay outside till the street lights come on. Yeah. And then you come back in the house. Yeah. Right. But with our kids, there's a lot of helicoptering going on, but we didn't have that. So where does that come from?
I mean, I think it's just straight compensation. I think it's pretty straightforward. I mean, you and I talk a lot about, we had these tough childhoods. And so we've tried to make a childhood that we would have wanted that's easier and softer and, appearance is more fun. I think that, at least that's for me. I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think, if I'm looking at it, and I've talked to my therapist, I've talked to my girlfriends about this, and we all know that we overcompensate in this area, and we're all trying to like temper it as much as we can. But what I will say about our kids, they might be spoiled. They are spoiled, and they may not have a lot of difficulties, but they also have an insane amount of confidence, like way more confidence than I had as a kid. It blows my mind. Like, that's one thing I kind of tease my friends and our generation of kids about, is that, listen, maybe they don't have a lot of tough times, but they say what they mean. They ask for what they want. They do what you know what I mean? They have that thing. And I know, like, for me personally, and, some of my friends that we've talked to, we were sort of raised to be silent, not be seen, just do what you're told. And I don't know about your kid. My kid don't have that. My kid does not have that. He is out there doing his thing, whatever he wants, however he wants to do it. He has no fear about it not being perfect. I mean, he's just living his life. And I like that about him.
I think that is a good skill that they're developing, the confidence. We also need to temper it with ability.
That's true.
And so I think that for my situation, our son is very confident, but also not extremely capable in some of the things. And that comes from an inability to deal with setbacks, because there haven't been a lot of setbacks in his life. And I look at what we've come through dealing with this pandemic. We come through when you don't get your way, when you feel the disappointment. And I look at how I can teach him to deal with disappointment and to bounce back from rejection, if it hasn't happened to him, right? And I said, the one thing that I can do is to model it in what I do.
Right.
And so for me, the biggest takeaway I have, and what I hope comes across in my parenting, is as I audit my own behavior and I check myself, that I'm able to then model resilience so he sees it even if he's not experiencing it.
Right.
And that comes back to what you were saying earlier, Tara. Like, they don't have to go through the difficult stuff.
Right.
But they need to see that when people that they love and people around them are also going through difficulties, how we're handling it.
Right.
So if there is a sense of being disappointed or discouraged, not able to go on family vacation because of pandemic, not able to see family because of the holidays, not able to go somewhere.
Yeah.
It's how we respond and our attitudes and the words that we use when we deal with that rejection or negativity that's really going to inform how they are and how resilient they become.
Yeah, I agree with you. I definitely try to model that for him. And I try to be transparent about when I am disappointed. When, I think sometimes you get in the habit of trying to hide the tough stuff from your kid. You know what I mean? Like, because you don't want them to, see that you're struggling. But I have found some of like our best conversations, my best conversation with Gage, my best moments with Gage are when I'm just transparent about like, hey, buddy, I'm sorry. I'm just, really, today was a bad day, or, in the morning sometimes. And now he'll do it to me. He'll get up in the morning and I'll be like, hey, how you doing? He'll be like, I'm really grumpy today. So I just don't want to really talk. Or I'm like, okay, cool. Well, let me know if you need anything. Okay, cool. So I just feel like naming the emotions and being honest about when it is hard and how you're handling the hard and continuing to show up every day. I think you're right. I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah. And so, we need to make sure that we teach them how to handle hardship and failure, how they see how we handle hardship and failure, and realize that when we start to remove the scaffolding, they may fall and they may hurt themselves. But they can fall out in the world and they can hurt themselves out in the world. And I think growing up, it's a lot harder to let go, especially when we see how challenging and how difficult and how ugly it can be in the outside world. You just want to keep them safe and you want to protect them from everything. But protecting them gives them, as my husband says, like a false sense of confidence because they see the world through rose-colored glasses that they need to take off and see the world the way it is and then live in that world and live in that truth and figure out how they can navigate it successfully. Because one of the things that I'm most proud of is the fact that, I had challenges and I had difficult situations, but I'm better for it because I was able to overcome it, right?
Right.
I knew how to change buses on the public transportation system at 11 years old. I could read that bus map and I could change it, Moving to New York at 21 years old by myself, was able to navigate situations as a young adult. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that's 8 years away for Roman. He doesn't know how to do that. He wouldn't know how to do that because he's not developing and flexing that muscle. And I need to start teaching him now. So that's something that I'm going to intentionally start doing with my parenting this year is to start to let go
a little bit.
And family got to see what happens. But I should start creating a blog, be like, what happens when Roman starts?
We're just going to chip away at the scaffolding a little bit at a time.
Really? That's the way you do it? You don't just let it go?
I mean, I guess it depends on what opportunities present themselves, right? You can practice a little bit. You don't have to wait for a big, difficult situation. You can practice in little ways. I mean, and I think the important thing to remember is that the thing that he's going to have that maybe you didn't have is he's going to have you as the soft place to land when he does fall.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
I think that that's something to remember is that as we let go of the scaffolding and we remove that, to never remove the emotional support.
Right.
Because that's what they're going to need and that's what they're going to lean on. And that's what we're going to lean on with each other, not just with our parenting situation, but with our friends as well. So we take that with us as we strive to raise resilient kids and flex that muscle not only in them, but in
myself. I'm going to work on making myself more resilient. I was reading those. I was like, what else do I need to do? Let me make sure I'm doing this.
And you're definitely going to do it because that's just you, lifelong learner. So before we wrap up, let's talk about what the next couple of weeks are bringing for you. How is school going? And talk to us about your courses for the next semester.
Yeah, school's going well. I'm not going to say school's going well. School has been really tough this semester. Let me be transparent. It's been really hard. This is I took 3 classes this semester, which is one more than normal, and they're all 3 like my last core classes, so they're really tough, really demanding. But I have about 3 weeks left. Finals will be done. Final project will go in at May 12th, so I'll be done May 12th. Then I have summer and fall, and I've got 2 electives each semester, and then December, I'll be an MBA graduate.
I love it. I'm looking forward to the graduation party.
Yeah, me too. I keep doing this thing in my mind, especially this semester. I'm like, this time in 3 weeks, I'll be done with this semester. And then this time at Christmas, I'll be done. I keep I just need a little fast forward every now and again. I know you're supposed to be present, but every now and again, I need at Christmas, I'll be done.
We should have a really big party in December for your graduation. My husband's a DJ. So
that's right.
We can play all the 90s hip hop we want. And it'll probably upset some of our new other friends, but
I'm going to start working on my playlist, please. We are ready. So this is explicit. Don't bring your kids to this party.
This is not for the faint of heart. This is not a Disney crowd.
That's correct.
Oh, that's fantastic.
What's going on for you?
Well, as I mentioned on last week's episode, when we had Dr. Shazia Anwar on talking about raising Muslim kids in Ramadan, I did share that I'm starting a new position. So I am pivoting and I'm taking on a non-legal role for the first time in 16 years. That starts next week. And it's scary because
so excited for you.
It is very exciting to be going to a new opportunity and the ability to continue to work in the equity ecosystem and to advance understanding and celebrate diversity, it's the perfect time to do it because April is Celebrate Diversity Month. And I love the opportunity to continue to use my voice and use my platform to try to work to make this a better world, not just for Roman and for Gage, but for all of our kids. So podcast family, that is what I'm going to be doing, and more details to come.
Yeah, we've got a busy couple of weeks coming up, me and you. It's going to be crazy.
I love it.
But we're still going to be bringing the podcast
every week
on the same platforms. Make sure you're following. Make sure you're leaving us reviews. We're bringing you episodes all the time. No matter how busy we get, we're always coming back to you guys.
Podcast family, we're never too busy for you because you matter. And understanding that we are better in this parenting experience when we share our stories and listen to one another and learn and unlearn some of the unhealthy things that may have happened in our childhoods, just to make us better adults and better parents as we move forward. So with that being said, we are going to sign off so Tara can go study.
I need it. Say all the good prayers and send the good vibes for us, guys.
Always good vibes, always. Remember, be good to one another. Guard your health, mental, physical, and spiritual. We'll see you back next week, same time, same place. Take good care.